Welcome to Love Scenes and Dream Queens, where books are devoured, crushes are validated, and opinions are delightfully unfiltered. Join for the giggles, stay for the sass. Hey girl, hey Kelsey, how you doing?
Hello. I'm so happy to be back.
Welcome back. I'm always happy to have you. So we're talking about ACOMAF today, A Court of Mist and Fury.
Good.
Do you
I gotta
know
show the
that?
book, like always.
Show the book. Show the book. Yeah, because
Here's what we're reading, everyone.
Kelsey doesn't do e-readers.
Not
Kelsey
yet.
does physical books. That's her jam. So
And audio.
I have to tell you real quick. You know, after we read ACOTAR last month, I told the story before. I couldn't stop myself from reading ACOMAF. Like I finished ACOTAR and I went straight into book 2, knowing that the recording that our recording wasn't like for another month, but I couldn't help myself. But then I kind of forgot because I have that problem. If you've been following along on the last 2 episodes, you know that I have a problem remembering stuff sometimes. So, as we were getting ready for this recording, I was like, okay, so like trying to think about the book, right? And I love the book. Like, I love the book.
Oh yes. Did
like,
you
I
reread? Did you reread it, Sabrina?
I might have done like a little half read.
A third time.
Third time's a charm.
To be fresh.
Had to be fresh. So over the past few days, I've been rereading like pieces of it just to remember. I can't believe how much you forget, like little details. I really like.
Well, let me tell you, Sabrina, because yes, I did physical. Actually, I audio read this book. I listened to this book this time, but I had my physical copy and I was taking notes and sticking Post-its all throughout the book. And that's how I compiled the notes I'm reading off of today. Because yes, you pick up things that you missed or you just remember things and you're like, I have to comment on that.
Right. So you're better than me though, because you're a teacher. And so, you're a little more organized than I am.
I try to be.
A lot.
I try to be.
More. So anyway, yeah, I did my little half reread this past week. So I'm so excited. I think I'm gonna go straight into the third book. But anyway, let's talk about real quick before we get into ACOMAF. Let's talk about what you're currently reading. What do you got going on? Are you still on a Megan Quinn train? Are you still on that journey?
Well, I have departed the Megan Quinn train temporarily.
Okay.
Because I got my ARC copy of Erin Fitzgerald's book, We All Fall Down, which I am so behind in because, again, as I've said, my time to like sit down and physically read is not a lot. So I'm about 35% of the way through, but I'm enjoying it. But I'm listening to a new author that I found just on Audible, surfing through Audible. It's a British billionaire romance by J.S. Scott. It's called Tell Me You're Mine.
Okay.
J.S. Scott. The first book is called Tell Me You're Mine. There is a follow-up. I don't know if there's going to be a third or not, but basically it's like a British billionaire that's involved in a huge scandal meets American crisis manager. And they like meet on a plane and there's like, chemistry from the start. And so she goes to spend some time with him in London to like help squash this big scandal by posing as his girlfriend. But obviously there's true love between them. And
of course.
It's nice. It's nice. It's just different. I haven't really read a lot of billionaire romances. Have you?
No. I mean, I read like 50 Shades of Grey like 10 years ago.
Forever ago. Yeah.
Forever ago. Which was obviously he was like I think he was a billionaire, right? Yeah, I think he was.
I didn't actually read the books. I just read them or watched the movies.
Watch the movie. Yeah. I tried to watch the movies, but I couldn't get into it. But it's because I thought the books are better. But anyway, no, it's only time, and that was a long time ago. So
okay. Well, What about you? What are you reading?
So I'm reading The Frontrunner by Elsie Silver, because that's my girl.
Oh,
One day I'm going to interview her. I'm gonna call it right now. I'm gonna claim it. I'm saying it right now. One day I'm gonna have her on here. Imagine.
That would be incredible.
That would be so like such a dream. Anyway, so I'm reading The Frontrunner by her, which is the third book in and I have the book here because I forget, the Gold Rush Ranch series. This was actually her first series, I think. Forgive me, Elsie, if I'm incorrect here, but I think this was her first collection, maybe. So this was before Wild Love, I think it's Rose Hill series came out, and
Rose
also
Hill,
the Chestnut Springs, which is Reckless, Powerless, all those. So those came out after, and they're all interconnected. They're all like
the best kind of series.
They're all right. Yes. They're all connected to each other. So she starts off with the Gold Rush Ranch series, and then you see those characters kind of popping up here and there in the second series, and then the third series, and whatever. So anyway, but she has her new book coming out, which is Wild something,
Eyes.
Eyes.
No.
Wild Side or Wild Eyes?
No. Wild Side. I'm sorry. Wild Eyes was book 2 about Skylar and West.
Yes.
Wild Side is what's coming out in March, I believe.
March. Yeah. And so Way and I are going. I'm so excited for that because Way and I are going to go see her in the Strands in the city, the Strand bookstore.
That's so exciting.
I know. I'm so excited. So I'm going to meet up with Way. And I actually haven't met her in person. So I'm very excited to meet her. Way, not Elsie Silver. Although I am excited to meet Elsie too. But anyway, so we're going to go to that. But so this is the first, I started with the Rose Hill, which is Wild Love and all those. I fell in love with all those books. And then, so I'm eagerly awaiting the next book coming out in a few weeks. And then after that, I read the Chestnut Springs. I think that's the one, which I loved also. I think it was Cade's story. Cade and I can't remember the girl, the nanny, and Cade. I think that was my favorite book. But they were all good. And then I was like, you know what? Obviously, I've been trying to recover from Onyx Storm for like a month.
Oh gosh.
And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to do some Elsie Silver. So because I love her. She always makes me feel good. So I'm doing the Gold Rush now, Gold Rush Ranch, which is the third one.
Say that 5 times fast, Sabrina.
I know. I can't. Half the time I can't speak. But I will say for like people who I was talking to Way the other day, and she actually, we're going to see Elsie Silver in the city, in the Strand. But she was like, I haven't even read any of her books yet. I was like, how you go to a book signing? You haven't even read any of her books. So I've been telling her. So I was like, listen, don't start with the first ones, the Gold Rush Ranch, because I feel like Elsie's writing got so much better with Wild Love. The writing in Gold Rush is good. It's good. It's very good. But I do think that the storylines and the writing itself really improved by the time she got to Wild Love and the whole Rose Hill series. So I would recommend if you're listening or watching and you want to try Elsie Silver and you haven't, don't start with Gold Rush Ranch, which is her first series. Even though it sets you up as far as characters, you see the characters again later on. But I would say do the Wild Love, do the Rose Hill, because those stories are so good, and then you can go back. I don't know. That's how I did it, and it was fine. But
that's where I'm at. So
yeah. Have you read all her? Have you read?
No. I've only read the Rose Hill, but I have every single other book of hers. So I will get there.
Yes.
But I'm going to do Wild Side next.
Yes. And when you're done with that, do Chestnut Springs. Chestnut Springs is really good. It's really good. I always talk about her. I love her. She's like so raunchy.
She is. She's
really
so
is. Freaking raunchy. Like
so
girl.
Good.
I mean, I always say like she's gonna give you the play-by-play. Like you're gonna know what's going down.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm here for it, but I love her, and I love the stories. Like they're so good, and I love that there's a happy ending usually. Yes, yeah, in all her books there's a happy ending.
Yeah.
So, And I love that you see the characters again in the following book. Like you don't,
I know. That's why
you know
I
what I
love
mean?
interconnected
Yes.
interconnected standalones within a series. That's why it will always be my favorite type of
Yes.
series to read.
Yes.
Because I
It's so
miss
nice
the
to see.
characters when they go
Yes.
away.
Yes. I
You
agree.
know.
I agree.
You know
And
it.
you're like, oh, I wonder how they're doing. And then you see them and it's like, oh my God. I
They're
love it. It's
still
just so sweet.
happy.
You're so happy. I know. It feels good. So that's what I'm reading. I'm excited for, but I'm excited for
I'm very
Wild.
jealous
They're so
that,
good.
that you get to
I'm
see
telling you,
her.
she's so cute. Like I follow her on Instagram. She's just so cute. We need to be best friends. We need to, hey Elsa, you want to be my best friend? My BFF? Do you want to be my BFF? I love her so much. But anyway, so ACOMAF. Did you start book 3 yet? When did you finish book 2?
Just a couple days ago, I really tried to pace myself so that I was like finishing just a couple days before we would record because I wanted
Yeah,
to
to
be
be fresh.
on top of it. Yes.
Yeah.
And I have
So,
been
well,
so excited to jump on with you
I
because this
know.
book brought back all the feelings, which we'll get into, but you know.
Yep.
Okay.
Because when we talked about ACOTAR, you can't really ACOTAR meaning the first book, not the whole series. Well, we talked about the first book, ACOTAR. We obviously, because we've read, this is a reread for us. Doing this whole series. This is all, we've read the whole series before, so we know what happens. And so it was hard for us. We talked about it. It was hard for us to discuss book 1 because we knew what was going to happen in book 2 and all the
I
changes that
think
were going
that's
to take
going
place.
to be even harder for this book.
Yeah.
It's going to be harder for this book to just talk about book 2.
Yeah.
I have notes, Sabrina, that say wait till after book number whatever because I just can't. I can't.
You forget.
Still.
Right. And sometimes, like in my head, I thought as I was preparing to record this episode, in my head, I thought that book 2. That's why I had to do that quick 2.5 reread, the half a reread, because I couldn't remember where book 2 ended and book 3 began. So I was like about to talk about things that were starting to happen in book 3. And then I was like, wait a minute. I can't talk about that yet. We were not there. Like book 3 hasn't happened. So I had to do a quick reread because I had to figure out where we ended with book 2 and what happened in book 2. Because I read it a few weeks ago. But anyway, so now we could talk about for the listeners and the viewers, you guys are listening and watching. Now's a good time to log off. If you haven't read ACOMAF book 2, now's a good time to.
We'll see you later.
We'll see you later because we're going to give spoilers. So come back to us. So now we could talk about Rhysand. Thank you, Jesus.
Rhysand.
It's like such
I fall in love with him every time. Over again.
I know.
Yes.
I know.
Okay, where do you want to start?
Oh my gosh.
Rhysand, obviously.
Okay, let's start. I know. I really just want to talk about Rhysand, but we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it right. So I don't know if you remember the first time you read the series.
Oh, I do.
You do? Okay. Were you still okay? First of all, today, the Kelsey that I am speaking to today, you're obviously Team Rhysand.
Yes.
But you don't hate Tamlin. You've expressed that.
I don't. And I feel like I need to make a PSA right now. Like,
yeah, all right, let's do that real quick.
If you're listening to this episode or watching and you're like a Tamlin hater, like we can all have our feelings, but I am not that person. So I'm just saying that here and now. And I have specific thoughts I'll get into, but I don't. And also I'm speaking from the lens of knowing how the rest of the series carries out. But even still in book 2, I feel for the guy in a way, and I'll get into it. But no, I'm not a Tamlin hater, but I am for sure Team Rhysand. But the first time I read this book, I was in this weird spot of like I was liking Rhysand the more I read about him. He was intriguing to me, but but there was still a kernel of me that was just missing the Tamlin and Feyre relationship. And I knew they weren't right for each other, but I guess it's because I got sucked in to Tamlin in book 1, as do I think most of us did until maybe Under the Mountain. So it's just hard for me to let go of like first love.
Yep.
Once we got to chapter 54, I was like, okay,
I can't.
I'm all in.
We're gonna have a whole section for chapter 54 and 55. But I want to ask you. You mentioned that you knew that they were not, Tamlin and Feyre were not right for each other. Did you know that the first time you read it? The first time you read the book, did you realize at what point did you realize that maybe that they're not right for each other? Was it the beginning of book 2? When you saw all the struggles, all her struggles, or when was it that she started to realize that maybe he wasn't the one for her?
I think it was just the more I saw her connecting with Rhys, just like the closer they got, and there were tidbits in the book of Feyre mentioning that she was attracted to him, and like she would even say, "Oh, is it so soon? Is it so soon after I left Tamlin?" I knew there was like trouble in paradise, and it wasn't really paradise, obviously, the first third of the book, but I think, and we'll get into it, but I think there are a lot of people who overlook the trauma that Tamlin himself went through, and while that's not an excuse for his behavior, I do think it's easy to just brush that aside. And I'm not so quick to brush that aside. Feyre even says, I made a note somewhere, I don't remember what chapter it was, but she said in the book, she acknowledged that Tamlin was more broken after Under the Mountain than she was. So she even acknowledges that.
Right.
But what about you?
Well,
when it comes to Tam and
I want to say, before I forget, real quick, I want to just say this thought. I think she does say that. And at first I was like, there's no way, because he wasn't even really like there. I mean, he was there. We know he was there under the mountain, but he wasn't really present. He was, checked out, or he seemed like he was checked out. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we know now, as we read ACOMAF, or have read ACOMAF, we realize that Tamlin is not a communicator. He holds everything inside. He doesn't know how to talk. And so I could see where Feyre would think that, because I think he just held it all in, and he was having nightmares, and they both were, but they weren't talking about this. Whereas Rhysand was very open with her about the nightmares, and he was kind of going through it with her. And eventually they spoke about it, but she, there were times at night where she would wake up with Tamlin and go to the toilet and bathroom and vomit, and he never once woke up to help her. And we all know that he was very aware of what's going on. So
do you think,
the fact that he never,
do you think it was guilt? Do you think he just felt so guilty for everything? Because he sent her home in book 1. We talked about that last month. He sent her home because he didn't want her to be hurt. And then even though she chose to come back and do everything she did under the mountain, it's possible that he just still felt really guilty for everything. And maybe, and you're right, he couldn't communicate, and Tamlin just needs therapy. I mean, they all need therapy. Tamlin in particular needs a good therapist.
I agree. He's just, I don't know. He just didn't know how to communicate. And I think it was a detriment for them. But going back to your question, or to the question, I think it, like, as you said, I was holding on to Tamlin and Feyre, because obviously they fell in love, and I do believe it was real at the time. And so I was team Tamlin and Feyre. Of course I was. I mean, we all were in book 1, right? And we were just like, we wanted it. We're romance readers. We're here for the happy ending. We want them to find love. We want everyone to find love. That's what we want. And
I'm glad you brought that up, though, that they did fall in love and it was real, because you can be in love with someone who's not the right person for you. Like, we've all been there.
It was absolutely. And she says that too in book 2, I think, where she's talking to Rhysand. She says, maybe I fell in love with the first sort of person that kind of loved me or cared for me because I was so broken in a sort of way around, I don't know, I'm paraphrasing. But I think that's true. I think she fell in love with Tamlin because he loved her and he treated her well. She had expectations of what Prithian would be like, and they were not anything like what she thought. The reality of Prithian was, when she was there at first in the Spring Court, it was beautiful for her. She was like, this is not what I was thinking was, in the human realm, we thought this is going to be awful. It's, but she realized that it was really beautiful. And so I think, as she said to Rhysand in book 2, I fell in love with sort of the first person who cared for me, who loved me, who showed me attention, who, because she didn't have that. Her father wasn't there for her. Her sisters weren't there for her. Her mother died. Like, we know she's got a lot of trauma. So absolutely, I feel like it was real. And, it was beautiful for a time, but obviously Under the Mountain changed a lot. And it broke her in a way, both of them, in a way that they just could not come back together. It just, and
that does happen in real life.
It does. It does happen in real life. Tamlin was so overprotective of her, and tried to control everything. He could not see past that. He could not see past trying to protect her. And unfortunately, it just didn't work. Obviously we have the other part of her and Rhysand being mated, but she didn't know that at the time. So, yeah, I don't hate Tamlin. I know a lot of people are like, Tamlin. I think Tamlin's a good guy. As we go on through the books, there are some moments where I question him. And his, there are some moments where I'm like, what is that? What are you doing? And obviously we'll get into those.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
I know what you're talking
where
about.
I'm like, well, what are you doing?
Yes.
But I do think overall, I think Tamlin's a good guy. I just think that he was dealt a bad hand and he didn't know how to deal with that. He just couldn't get past the control, couldn't get past the fear. He was so afraid of losing Feyre again. And he was so overprotective that unfortunately it didn't work, and it made her kind of hate him. She just couldn't do it. Okay. So, all right. So we know that she's back at the Spring Court. They're getting married. So let's talk about Ianthe. I hope I said that right. Let's talk about her. What do you think about her? We'll go with it. What did you feel like? What were your thoughts when she was first introduced? What were your initial thoughts before you knew anything else?
Okay, when we first met Ianthe, I thought maybe she's, because she commented that none of the other high priestesses liked her and she didn't like them either. I don't want to say I viewed her as a victim. Victim's not the word I want to use, but I guess I viewed her as someone who just wasn't very popular for whatever reason. And maybe she was just a little misunderstood. That was my initial thought. As we got later into the book, especially when Feyre got to view that memory of Rhys's, I was like, wow, you're a terrible person. And then a lot of things made sense.
Yep.
Like when she was pursuing Lucian at the beginning of the book. I'm like, oh my gosh, you really are horrible.
Yeah. I kind of felt like that. So in the beginning, like when we were first introduced to her, I was kind of like, don't know about you. I mean, SJM set her up to be like someone that was like Team Tamlin and Feyre, but it was always a little like shady to me. I was always like, because SJM, she would throw in little things like, oh, if Ianthe and Tamlin had babies, like they would be beautiful because she's like beautiful. Yeah. Like SJM would throw in these little like sprinkle these little like things that would get into your head. You're like, wait a second, do we like or do we not like her? Like what is her story? Does she have an alternative motive here? Why is she here? So I think I always felt a little like worry of her. I was like, I don't know about you, but I don't know. I didn't really question it too much until obviously we know later on in the book that Rhysand was not a fan, and he shares
Well,
the memory with Feyre of when Ianthe tried to seduce him. And
that girl was
obviously
bold.
she was bold, bold, bold. And we also know that she went for Lucian and probably everybody else, every other High Lord and everybody else. So
Mhm.
yeah, we don't like her. Um, but I'm glad that Feyre was able to see that memory because
Oh yeah.
Feyre's, Feyre liked Ianthe. Like she appreciated her because she felt like she saved her when she when she was in the spring court and she had moments of like, I don't want to be here. I like where she would panic.
Yeah.
Ianthe would kind of bail her out.
Also, I
So,
can't believe I didn't mention this yet, but the very freaking end, we find out Ianthe is the one who sold out her sisters.
girl,
And then I was like, oh, ooh, I do not
uh,
like you. You are
do not like, no,
an
she
atrocious
is not
human
okay.
being. Oh, yeah. No. So we're not a fan. Sticking to book two thoughts, sticking to book two thoughts. I can't talk beyond, but yeah, I do not like her. She
Right.
needs to go.
She needs to go.
She needs to go.
Um, so I just have to tell you guys at home a quick story. I know we're kind of stopping in the middle of this podcast, but Kelsey and I lost power. And
Sure
so in the
did.
middle of our we did. So, this is what happens. Sometimes these things happen. So in the middle of recording, everything stopped. And so we had to start over. So this is actually 2 days later if you're watching. Um, if you're watching on YouTube, this is 2 days later. So you can see my hair is different. I got a little ponytail going on because this is fifth day hair, don't care. This is called fifth
Don't
day hair,
care.
don't care.
Love it.
Right. So so that's why I look different. So we try to be the same, but
We tried to look the exact same.
we try to
I washed my sweater and I recurled my hair this morning
it looks
because
so pretty.
I had to deliver.
You're so
So
good. You're better than me. I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm just gonna throw in a ponytail, and that's how it's gonna be. But anyway, we were about to talk about Lucian. I
we
wanted to
were
ask you about Lucian. I think that's where we were. We left off
our
with that.
favorite
So
foxy boy.
our favorite, yes. Tell me what you think about Lucian.
So Lucian, I feel kind of bad for because I honestly feel like he's stuck in the middle. He knows that everything Tamlin was doing to Feyre at the start of our book, he was not cool with it. But at the same time, Tamlin's kind of his friend and obviously his high lord, and so he doesn't want to cross him. You notice even from book one that anytime he speaks to Tamlin, he's very careful about how he approaches things. So I just feel like he's just, like I said, caught in the middle between wanting to do what's right and wanting to stay true to his friend. I think he's a really good guy, though. He's a good male, and we
I
want
do agree.
justice for Lucian. Love for
Yeah,
Lucian.
I do agree. He's a good male. I think he's just dealing with, you know, the cards he was dealt. And
Exactly.
like everyone is pretty much. Um, and he's doing the best he can. So I think, he is loyal to Tamlin as he should be.
Mhm.
Um, but it's a little frustrating as a woman, as a woman reading the book. You're kind of like, come on, stand up for Feyre, like help a sister out.
I
Like
know.
just help her out because no one's really. I mean, no one. She doesn't really have anyone. I mean, I guess Ianthe, but
No, we already talked about her. We
we
don't
already
like
talked
her.
about her, so she's
No.
not really. She's not really for Feyre. Feyre doesn't really know that yet, but she's not really for Feyre. So
Ianthe is team Ianthe.
that's right. So she doesn't really have anyone in her corner really to advocate for her. So I felt like there were times where I wanted Lucian to advocate for her, but you know, he's doing his best. So it is what it is.
He is, yeah.
But I do like him. I think he's just dealing. So let's talk about the night court. So we know that Tamlin is leaving and he's going out, I don't know, hunting or something like that. And he's bringing Lucian with him. And she says, take me with you. And he tells her no. And he basically locks her in the house. And it was pretty bad. She could not get out. And she pretty much had a panic attack, was screaming for anyone to come save her because he locked her in the house. I think that was the nail in the coffin for her. I think she was already feeling a lot. I think she was dealing with a lot from obviously Under the Mountain. She was going through a lot with that. She felt very guilty for killing those fake teenagers or young people. Yeah. She's also feeling some kind of way about the tithe. How he's making, we didn't talk about that. He's making everyone pay the tithe. And she's like, but these people are poor. You have everything you need. Why are you? And he's like, it's the law. It's the way things go. And she's just like, okay, we'll change it. Like, why are we doing this? And I think it's the water nymph or something like that. The sea nymph.
Yes. And thank God for the water wraith.
The water wraith. Right.
And she comes back.
She comes back and helps her. And I think that for her was also kind of like the beginning of the end. She just was like, this is too much. It's not fair. And I don't think she really agreed with Tamlin's tactics. I think also when the part where they talked about, getting married, if she would be High Lord, and he shut her down. He was like, no.
You mean High Lady?
Or sorry, the High Lady. He told her, no. There's no such thing as a High Lady. And
I believed that. My first time reading the story, I'm like, yeah, there's just High Lords. That's how it is. But yeah, like the way he just kind of shut it down.
Right.
Was like,
he just kind of,
come on, Tam.
Right. He didn't even like talk to her about it. He was just like, no, we don't really have that. So, and she was like, okay. So she never really felt like, he was like, you're going to be my consort. And she was just, she felt some sort of way about that. So there were a lot of things building up to the moment where she had the panic attack when he locked her in the house, where obviously we know that Moore came and took her out and brought her to the Night Court. What were your thoughts when that happened, when that scene unfolded and she went to the Night Court? Were you feeling at that time like, yes, this is a good thing? Were you ready for it? Were you ready for this sort of change, this transition? Or were you kind of like, no? Like,
I was interested. I was interested in just like, okay, well, what's going to happen now? And as we've said, the more times you read the same book, different things crop out. I really don't think the first time I read this book, I really grasped like how she felt. Like, just speaking from personal experience, I've never like dealt with anxiety personally. I don't know what that feels like, but so the first time reading through, I'm like not really getting it. And then the more times I read it, I'm like, yeah, this is intense. And she probably felt so suffocated, literally. And I actually am claustrophobic. So the idea of truly being locked, even though it was a spacious manor in her case, being locked in somewhere and not being able to get out.
Right.
The more I thought about how that would feel for me, that was intense. So I'm glad that she was rescued from that situation. It was cool that it was more, I guess, because Rhysand couldn't cross into the Spring Court technically, right? He was not allowed to.
He was not allowed because it would have been an issue of basically if Rhysand crossed over, Tamlin could kind of call war on the Night Court and get her back. So he had to do it a certain way. Yeah, I agree. I think going through this the first time, I think I was definitely more open to her being in the Night Court. Obviously, she had spent time there. We see her with Rhysand in the beginning of the book. So, we're starting to kind of see how that relationship is going, how he treats her, and we can see the differences. We're starting to see like he and Tamlin are different. And Rhysand does empower her to be who she is, to be strong, to be, she even says to him when he says, you got to train. She's like, but won't that send a bad like message to everyone? And he's like, and I think she says, I realize how stupid that is.
Yeah.
As soon as I said it, I realized how stupid that is. Like,
that makes me feel for her.
People are, Tamlin and Lucien have her feeling, like guilty and just they have her just feeling little and small.
Mhm.
So I think when I read it the first time, I think I was ready for it, but at the same time, I think as I have reread it, I definitely am like, thank God, get her out of there.
And I want to ask you, I'm just wondering if I can cut in and ask this.
Yeah.
I know we're like on to the night court, but taking a step back, I had said, we know that Tamlin did not do much under the mountain other than sit around. And I wonder if that would have been different if he'd been with his true mate. If Feyre had been his true mate, would we have seen different behavior after Under the Mountain when they were back at the Spring Court? Or do you think it wouldn't have mattered? That's just how Tamlin is. He has these struggles. I don't know why I thought about that, but I wanted to ask you your wonderings.
I don't really know. I don't really know. I would like to say that maybe his behavior might have changed because we know that he did nothing, absolutely nothing under the mountain. Um, but at the same time, like he loved her.
I
He was in love
know.
with her under the mountain. So what
So maybe not.
like maybe not. Like he already
Well,
knew he
yeah,
loved
because
her.
we talked about he loved her so much and was so terrified of bad
Right.
things continuing to happen. So maybe not. It's just something I was noodling on.
Yeah. I feel like I wanna give Tamlin the benefit of the doubt and say yes. But number one, that shouldn't matter. He was in love with her.
True.
And he just I don't know. And number two, I think he was um it's in his nature to be overprotective and fearful. I think those two things are Tamlin's MO. Like
Yeah.
he is super overprotective and to a fault. And he's also fearful. He's fearful that something's going to happen to her and that causes him to be overprotective. So it's like a snowball effect and he can't seem to control it. And it's just a huge flaw for him.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know that anything would have been different. I can't imagine it would have because he didn't even try. He didn't do anything. So I can't imagine that. Maybe he would have tried like 10% if he realized that she was his mate, but he didn't try. I don't know. So I don't
Yeah.
think so. But
Fair enough. Okay, we
um
can go back to the night court. I just had that little caveat I wanted to throw in.
yeah. That's actually a good question. Um so we know that I think she at this point she has said she's not going back to the Supreme Court. How do you feel about that?
That's true. Because, yeah, she had the couple visits, right? And then it was wedding day. And then she was like, for sure, not going back. So, um, I mean, I was happy for her that she was sort of forging her own path. And the more we got to know the members of the inner circle,
Mhm.
she just truly felt like she was somewhere where she was accepted as she
Right.
was for who she was. And I gotta say, the night court was super interesting. I like couldn't stop turning those pages.
I agree. I think the inner circle, they were all fantastic. I remember the first time I read them when they were introduced into the story, I was like, "Oh my god, I love them." They were so
I
great,
know.
all of them. Amryn, Moore, Cassian, Azriel, they were all fantastic. I
I
love their
forgot.
banter. They're so
Yes.
funny.
I forgot how much I love Amryn. Like, she's so sassy. And she's just this petite little thing
Yes.
that the
Yes.
big, tall females are
Yep.
like terrified of.
Yep. And like Moore is like her big sister. Like she's just
Yeah.
like taking care of her. So I don't know. I love them and I loved seeing how they accepted Feyre and really just loved her, loved on her. And I mean, tough love a lot of
Yeah.
times, but tough love. But they were just like, like Cassian was teaching her how to train. Amryn was like always calling her, I think, child or
Or
something like that.
girl.
Or girl. That was it, girl. But it was all like in love. You can tell that they were all
Yeah.
really good people and they kind of brought her in and were just like, you're one of us now. And I love that. It was like a found family and it was so fantastic. I love the character development that we see here with all the inner circle. Um, and I loved how Rhysand was just gentle enough with her where he let her know, I'm here for you. Whatever you need, I'm here for you. Whatever that looks like, whatever your needs are, I'm here for you. And a lot of that was just getting her shit together, like, because she was not okay. And he was like, we can talk about it. I'm here for you. And, and he was like, same. I have nightmares also. And we see that he's had nightmares and they're pretty intense as well. So he's definitely like on the same level or same page as her. And I love how he just comes down to meet her where she is, because that's what she needed. She needed Tamlin to meet her where she was, and he failed.
Couldn't do that.
And Rhysand picked up the slack there. All right, so let's talk about the human realm when they go back. And just for time, we'll kind of just hit on it real quick. So we know that they go back to the human realm to try to convince them to host a meeting for the queens. And it's the first time that we see everyone kind of meet each other. The inner. I don't think Mor was there the first time. I think it was just maybe Azriel and Cassian. I think Mor went the second time. And we see sort of the way that they all interact with each other. And it's very interesting to see Nesta in her element. We see her, and there's a little thing between her and Cassian, which is kind of interesting. So.
I picked up on that right away, and I was like, I'm here for this, because you have the quote unquote mean girl and the like class clown, if you will.
That's right. And he puts her in her place. Like, she is giving it to Feyre, and she's really giving Feyre a hard time. And he's like, I don't think so. He's like, you who did nothing when she was 14 years old, putting food on the table, saving all your asses, kept you guys alive. You have no right to say anything. So he put her in her place, but Nesta was like not hearing it either. She was like, I don't care. Like, she was basically like sucking her teeth at him. She didn't care. So Nesta she just stood her ground. So, with Nesta, it's like, I get mad at her sometimes and she frustrates me, but then I'm like, she's a strong female, or strong woman rather. And I can appreciate her role in the books. So we know that they do secure the meeting with the queens, some of them anyway. And we know in the end, they do get the other half of the Book of Breathings. One of the queens does give it to them. But I want to skip over that real quick. I want to talk about when they go to the Court of Nightmares. I have this little theory. I don't know. Not a theory, but I'm going to jump around real quick for a second, because I have these thoughts in my head, and they're kind of like all over the place. So just bear with me. When they go to the Court of Nightmares, I think it's everyone except Amren. I think Amren stays back to watch Valaris.
Yes.
So it's Cassian, Azriel, Feyre, and Rhysand, and Mor. Yeah, and Mor, because we know that that's where she's from. When they are traveling to the Court of Nightmares, they get attacked. They get shot down, or they get shot with arrows or something like that. I forget if they got shot with arrows or something like that, but they get attacked. And they don't know how that happened. They're like, what the hell? Like, what just happens, right? And Mor was not there. I think she either had winnowed in, or she was, I don't know where she was, but she shows up after they get attacked. Okay. So I'll say that again. She shows up after they get attacked. So now, yeah.
Where's your mind going, Sabrina?
Yeah. So that was that. They don't know how they got attacked. They don't know where it came from, but somehow the perpetrators knew where they were going to be, where they were going, because they were attacked. They were attacked while they were traveling from Valaris to the Court of Nightmares. Right. Later in the book, we know that Rhysand and Feyre are traveling in the Illyrian woods. They're flying, and they get shot down. And Lucien is there, and they say to Lucien, "How did you know where we would be?" And because Lucien has gone back, he wants to get Feyre to bring her back to Tamlin, because Tamlin wants her back, right? And they say to Feyre asked Lucian, like, how did you find us, or how did you find me? And he says, someone told me where you would be. But we never get clarification on that.
Oh my goodness.
We never get clarification on who that was. SJM left it alone. She threw that nugget in, she put that nugget in there and she left it.
Oh no.
All she said
I'm
was
writing a note.
yes. So
Oh my gosh.
they're all Cassian, Azriel, Moore, they're all in the Illyrian woods. I think they're at the cabin. But Feyre and Rhysand were like, gallivanting around, and they got shot down. Or I forget what happened exactly, but turns out it's Lucian to bring Feyre back to the Spring Court. And then when they ask him how he knew that where they would be, he says it. He says, someone told me. He literally says, someone told me. And it was left just like that. It didn't go any further. So we never know who told him where they were going to be. So they were attacked when they were going to the Court of Nightmares. They were attacked when they were gallivanting around the Illyrian woods. And we don't know who it is.
But you have a theory, don't you?
I do have a theory. I don't know it's a theory, but I'm wondering if it's more. Because I don't think it can be Cassian or Azriel. I'm pretty sure it's not. And I can't give too much away as to why I think it's more, because then I'm going to get into the book 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah.
Especially book 5.
We'll talk about it more later, but there are theories that she's sus.
Yeah. So I kind of felt like, what's going on here? Like, why? What is this about? Why? So something's going. So at some point, we got to find out who gave that information away. We have not found that out yet. We don't know who it was. The book finishes, and SJM never tells us who was the person that gave their location away. So just
okay, we'll be on the lookout for that.
Be on the lookout for that. But anyway, let's get to the when they're in the woods. So, we know that they're flying around, Feyre and Rhysand, and he gets shot down, and it's almost fatal, and she has to save him. She goes to find the cereal to find out to figure out how she can save him, and during that interaction, during that scene, the cereal tells her that Rhysand is her mate. Did you know?
Gosh.
Did you know that Rhysand was her mate? Did you ever have an inkling?
No, I don't even remember. Probably not. But then when I read it, I was like, so much makes sense now.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that, honestly, that was probably the catalyst to me getting on board the Rhys train 100%. Yeah. 90%.
Right.
Right.
At that point, you're like, I like him. Like, I could see it happening. But once it was mate, I was like, oh, snap. This is for real. And then everything kind of made sense. And then then she's mad at him. She asks Moore to bring her away for a few days, somewhere safe. And Moore brings her to the cabin in the woods, where she's alone for a few days, trying to collect her thoughts, because she's upset that Rhysand never told her that she was his mate, which we won't get into that, but I understand why he didn't tell her. I get it. Which she does.
That's a big thing to keep
That's a big
secret,
thing.
but we know why. We get it.
And she does too. Even she does too. But let's get to chapter 54 and 55.
Oh my gosh. The best part.
I know. Like those 2 chapters are so beautiful. When he tells her, are you going to serve me? When he comes into the cabin and she's like, do you want some soup or something like that? And he's like, shocked. He's like, are you going to serve me? And she's like, no, I'm going to warm it up. I don't cook, or something like that. Yeah. Leave it to Feyre to be a smartass. But he's like, in our culture or whatever, this is like kind of
a big thing.
A big thing.
The thing.
And it's kind of saying, like, if you do that, it's kind of saying that you accept the mating bond.
Yeah.
And we know that she does. And when he is telling her, she tells him, tell me everything. Explain everything to me. Because she is still unsure of the whole mating bond, and she doesn't know how, she's very confused and conflicted. But she knows she loves him deep down, but she hasn't admitted it yet. So she says to him, tell me everything. And he begins to tell her everything about how he saw her in his dreams 3 years ago and how he saw like a hand painting a dresser and like all these things. And like, we know that it's her back when she was a human. And just my heart. He was
And
like
then
crying the whole time.
You realize the significance of the things he said in book 1. Like, there you are. I've been looking for you. Thank you for finding her for me. When you understand, you're like, oh my God, I didn't think I could love this man more, but here we are. That was so emotional.
It was very emotional. It was very emotional because, yes, as you said, he reflects on a lot of the things that happened in the first book that we didn't know about as readers and Feyre didn't know about. And this whole time he knew, and now we're seeing sort of his perspective and we're like, oh my God, my little heart can't take this. It was so freaking beautiful. Like they were both in tears. I was just like, my God.
And I want to highlight, because he's so amazing, again, he talked about giving her a choice. He would have let her marry Tamlin if that's what she wanted. He would have sacrificed having her. And and just the patience he had all that time, even after he did finally meet her, he's like, I can't just tell her I'm her mate. Like, I have to slowly earn her trust and her love. Like, that man, male, whatever.
I think when she told him, the moment too that gets to me is when she told him basically that she loves him. I think she sits in his lap and she puts her arms around him and she says, you know, I love you, or I forget what she says, or you're mine, or I love you, something like that. But he like sobbed. Like, I think she says like, or I don't know, it was SJM, or I don't know. I don't remember who was narrating that scene. I guess it was Feyre. But like, he's like a sob like escaped him when she admitted to loving him, when she admitting to accepting the mating bond, when she admitted all these things. Like, he literally like a sob like escaped his throat. It was so emotional. I was a mess. I was a mess. And I think I was more a mess the second time I read the book. The first time I read it, I think I was still a little, I don't know. I don't know if I was still like in shock that they were mates and I was trying to process that, or I can't really remember what I was thinking the first time around. But the second time around, I think because I had already read the rest of the books and I was more invested in them, I think I really understood more, like, more deeply where he was coming from. Whereas the first time I read the book, it was kind of like he was newer to me. This relationship between them was newer to me. So I wasn't fully invested in it yet. But I think as I did the reread, I was 100% invested. I know his character. I know what kind of man he is, or male he is at this point. And I just was like, oh my God, it was just so emotional and beautiful. SJM. I mean, you know,
brilliant writer.
It's a brilliant writer. And you know, it's brilliant when people literally say chapter 54 and 55, and you know what they're talking about. Like, people can refer to chapter 54 and 55. And if you're a romance reader, you probably know what that is. That's crazy. Like, she can have like copywritten. Like, it's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it was so beautiful. So beautiful. And I was happy that they finally came together and made love. And they were like,
they made
had this time together in the cabin. And I was like, finally, they're like together in the cabin and like no one's bothering them. And like,
can we literally 30 seconds on that sexy one bed scene at the inn?
Oh
my God.
Oh my God. I know.
That tension was like,
I know.
Oh my goodness.
I was dying when I read that scene. Just a little teaser.
I
was like, you're killing me, SJM. You're killing me.
So good.
It was so good because they finally came together. It's such a slow burn. And I was just like, oh my God, this is so freaking good. And then we know that they go back and back to reality, and then the whole thing with Highburn, which was devastating
Lord.
because we know that Tamlin tricked
Literally.
them, or Tamlin sold them out.
Well,
Ianthe sold out her family,
Tamlin
her
sold,
sisters.
yeah. But Tamlin did, there came a point where actually, I think, wasn't it when Nesta and Elaine were being forced toward the cauldron? I'm pretty sure that's when he said, like, this isn't what we agreed to. So, like,
Yes.
not everything that happened in that scene was him, but like,
Right. Right.
And I just have to say, there's things about this scene in Highburn that I want to talk about with you, but I do need to wait probably till after book 5 because it's theory, but I don't want to spoil anything. So just know,
right.
Kelsey has more thoughts.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
We'll come back to those thoughts, but yeah, that was a tough scene when they brought the sisters out, and then it was even harder when we find out then that Lucien and Elaine are mates.
Oh my God,
which
that
is like
was
crazy.
That gave me whiplash the first
I was
time.
like,
I'm like, what?
Wait,
Screech.
what the hell?
The
Oh my
brakes are
gosh.
screeching. Whoa.
I know.
Actually,
it's crazy.
Wait. I wrote a note on that. Chapter 65, page 608. The quote from the book was, Elaine was staring over Nesta's shoulder at Lucien, whose face she had finally taken in. So my question was, did she notice I think in that moment she noticed the bond too. Because at first he said, "You're my mate." But then about a paragraph before, it says that she froze and like took special notice of him. So I wonder if a split second before he said, "You're my mate," if she realized it.
Maybe it's snapped into place for her and she realized. I wonder.
I don't know.
That's the $1 million question at this point that we need to know, that we're curious about. But
yeah,
that was tough. And when Feyre had to like play off the whole,
break the bond.
When she decided to go with Tamlin, and she was like, "Take my sisters, mine to mine." When she was telling Rhysand mine to mine to take her sisters, and that she was going to go back with Tamlin because it was the only way, literally, to get out of the situation that they were in. Because Highburn would have killed them. So she realized it, and Rhysand played along. It was so heartbreaking when she was just like, Tamlin, like, "Okay, I want to go back with you," and like, and Rhysand's just like, no.
And Lucien is like, he knew something.
He knew. And yeah, he's like, Feyre, I'm not stupid. Maybe Tamlin is. He's stupid in love. Okay, he's blind.
Yeah,
but I'm not. Lucien knows what's going on, but she played it off. But he couldn't do anything because Elaine was his mate.
I know.
So he had to stay quiet. He had to play along because Elaine's his mate. And so, yeah, that whole scene was just heartbreaking when she had to play the whole thing off and, have Rhysand and Mor take her sisters, and she went with Tamlin. And then we find out that Rhysand and her got secretly married, and she is now
romantic.
I know,
lady.
And no one else knew. Like, no one else. It was in secret.
Even Amren was in shock.
I know. And now Feyre is the High Lady of the Night Court, and she is in the Spring Court as a spy. And that's how the book
cliffhanger.
Ends. What a cliffhanger. Like, she is now. I think at the last scene too, she's giving Tamlin a hug, and she looks up and gives Lucien a sleepy smile. And Lucien is looking at her like, I know. He's like, I know what's up to. I'm not convinced. So it's going to be interesting to see in book 3 how that plays out, because now she's back at the Spring Court as the High Lady of the Night Court, trying to play off that she's in love with Tamlin, that he saved her again.
Boy.
But we know that she is now going to spy on the Spring Court for the Night Court.
Just now I thought of, if there was a song tied to that scene, I feel like it would be "I Did Something Bad" by Taylor Swift.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
100%. I was thinking of those lyrics as
100%.
you were talking about it. Oh my goodness.
100%. Yep.
Oh boy.
So that was a great ending. Cliffhanger. We've talked about cliffhangers before, but not brutal cliffhanger. You're just kind of like,
No.
oh snap, she's in the spring court, and she's the High Lady of the Night Court, and now she's going to make everything right.
Let's end with this because there is a bonus chapter that Sabrina has yet to read, but she's gonna love it. The bonus chapter is called, I believe it's called just Wings and Embers, or A Court of Wings and Embers. And it says a deleted scene from ACOMAF. And I didn't read this scene until after I'd read the whole series because I guess I didn't have that special edition book, but they're all available online. So I think there's like a direct link on Reddit if you just Google ACOTAR bonus chapters. But this is like a little sneak peek at that thing between Cassian and Nesta that whether you've read the bonus chapter or not, no one can deny there's not something there between them, right?
Right.
So I won't give details, but basically what happens in this scene is Cassian has to go back and visit their house because there's another letter they need to mail to the queens. So he's dropping the letter off with Nesta and asks her to mail it. And there is a moment between the two of them where you just feel that tension brewing up even more. And it's literally so delicious. Like you finish the chapter and it leaves you wanting more. So I highly encourage anyone listening or watching, read it. It's so good. It's okay if you've like read the whole series and you go back and read. That's what I did because I didn't know about it. But it's delicious.
Yeah, I definitely have to read it because there was definitely some tension at the house between Cassian and Nesta. Like there was definitely they were like
he's drawn to her.
Yeah.
Like she makes him angry and she makes him nervous, but he's also like so intrigued by her.
Yes. She's a challenge for him. She's a freaking human. He's like, I can squash you like a little bug.
But he's so intrigued.
You know the hell you can. I'll squash you.
It was a battle of words. You sure would. So check it out.
Right.
Check out Wings and Embers. Just Google it. If you Google ACOTAR bonus chapters, I think the Reddit link is the first one. Just follow that. You'll see it.
Will do. Kelsey, tell the people where they can find you.
Sure. So I'm on Instagram at Plot Up in the Moment. You can find me there. I love a good pun. Same. But you can find me on Insta, and I'm on that app, Threads. But to be honest, I don't know how that works. Like, I post something on Instagram.
Like, it's too much work.
Well, no. It's like I post some of my posts that I put on Instagram automatically get uploaded to my Threads, and others don't. So I don't know what the formula is there. So you can follow me on Threads. Just know that I probably won't know what the hell I'm doing.
Won't know how to respond to you, but that's okay.
It's okay.
It's all right.
It's all good.
Kelsey, thank you so much for being here again.
Thank you. Until
I
next
look forward
time.
to. I'm so excited to finally read book 3 because I've been waiting for a long time.
I'm so proud of you.
Book. So I need to move on with my life. So thank you again for being here. Thank you guys so much for being here. Take care.